Ever heard of the weeping prophet Jeremiah? He's one of those figures in the Bible whose story is both compelling and deeply human. Jeremiah's life was anything but easy. He faced persecution and even torture for delivering messages people didn't want to hear. Imagine being tasked with sharing prophecies of doom to your own nation. It's no wonder he's known as the weeping prophet. His suffering wasn't just physical but emotional as well, making his story resonate with many who face trials today. Jeremiah's persecution wasn't a minor inconvenience, it was intense and relentless. The prophet Jeremiah's suffering included being mocked, beaten, and imprisoned. His trials weren't just personal struggles, but were reflective of the larger spiritual state of Judah. The Bible story of Jeremiah paints a vivid picture of a man committed to his prophetic mission, despite overwhelming odds. It's like being the bearer of bad news and getting punished for it repeatedly. In exploring Jeremiah's prophecy, we find a man deeply connected to God, yet profoundly affected by the rejection he faced. The weeping prophet's story isn't just about lamentation, it's about resilience in the face of adversity. For example, think about times when you've had to stand firm in your beliefs despite opposition. Jeremiah's struggles mirror those moments, offering a blueprint for enduring hardship. His life story encourages us to stay true to our convictions. Jeremiah in the Bible serves as a powerful example of faith under fire. His suffering and the persecution of biblical prophets highlight the cost of delivering uncomfortable truths. If you've ever felt isolated for standing up for what's right, Jeremiah's trials can be both relatable and inspiring. He didn't waver in his mission, even when it meant facing severe consequences like imprisonment and torture. The weeping prophet Jeremiah's life sets the stage for understanding the profound challenges he faced. But what led this man to endure such hardship? The answer lies in his divine calling, which we'll delve into next. Jeremiah's prophetic mission began in the most unexpected way. Imagine being a young person, going about your daily life, when suddenly you're called to be a prophet to the nations. That's exactly what happened to the weeping prophet Jeremiah. His initial reaction was one of hesitation and doubt. He felt unprepared and unworthy for such a monumental task. This is a common theme among biblical prophets: hardship. They often felt overwhelmed by the weight of their calling. Despite his reservations, Jeremiah's faith started to take root. God assured him that he was chosen before he was even born, a message that can resonate with anyone feeling unsure about their path. For example, if you've ever doubted your abilities at work or in personal projects, Jeremiah's trials show that doubt is a natural part of growth. The Bible story of Jeremiah illustrates how embracing our calling can lead to profound personal development. The weeping prophet's story is filled with moments where he questioned his capacity to fulfill his mission, yet he persisted, embodying prophet Jeremiah's resilience. His struggles weren't just external, they were internal battles with fear and insecurity. Think about times when you've had to push past your own doubts to achieve something important. Jeremiah's life story encourages us to face our inner fears head-on. Jeremiah's prophetic mission wasn't just about delivering messages, it was about transforming himself and those around him. His message to Judah was one of urgency, calling for repentance and a return to faithfulness. This mirrors situations today where leaders must convey difficult truths to bring about positive change. The story of Jeremiah, explained through this lens, becomes a guide for effective leadership under pressure. As we delve deeper into Jeremiah's journey, it's clear that his initial reluctance set the stage for the immense challenges ahead. His acceptance of his role would soon lead him into direct conflict with the very people he was sent to help. During Jeremiah's time, the spiritual state of Judah was in serious decline. The people had turned to idolatry, worshipping gods made of wood and stone instead of the one true God. It's like when someone neglects their own health, choosing junk food over nutritious meals, leading to inevitable problems. The persecution of Jeremiah was largely due to his outcry against these practices. He saw that the nation's moral compass was spinning out of control, and he couldn't stay silent. Corruption was rampant among the leaders and the people alike. Imagine a society where justice is for sale and integrity is a rare commodity. That's the environment Jeremiah was up against. The torture of prophet Jeremiah wasn't just physical, it was a reflection of the societal decay. His prophetic mission was to highlight these issues, but not everyone was eager to listen. It's similar to whistleblowers today who face backlash for exposing truths. The weeping prophet's story is deeply tied to the condition of Judah. The nation's spiritual decline made Jeremiah's message urgent yet unwelcome. He was like a doctor delivering a grim diagnosis to a patient in denial. The suffering of biblical prophets often stems from their commitment to truth in the face of opposition. Jeremiah's struggles were a direct result of his attempts to steer Judah back on course. Jeremiah's prophecy emphasized the consequences of ignoring God's commandments. He warned that continuing down this path would lead to disaster. For instance, if you've ever ignored a car's warning light only to face a breakdown later, you can understand Judah's predicament. The story of Jeremiah Explained shows us how crucial it is to heed warnings before it's too late. Understanding the spiritual state of Judah sets the stage for why Jeremiah faced such intense persecution. His harsh message was a necessary response to the dire circumstances. But as we know, delivering tough truths often comes with a price, which Jeremiah was about to pay dearly. Jeremiah's prophecy was a heartfelt plea to his people to turn back to God. He wasn't delivering messages for the sake of doom and gloom. He genuinely wanted to prevent the impending disaster. The weeping prophet Jeremiah emphasized that repentance was the only way to avert catastrophe. It's like when a friend warns you about a bad habit that's harming your health. They're doing it out of care, not criticism. Jeremiah's message to Judah was rooted in love and concern. He used vivid imagery and powerful language to convey his point. For example, he compared Judah to a broken cistern that can't hold water, symbolizing their inability to sustain themselves without God. This practical example helped the people understand the gravity of their spiritual emptiness. The suffering of biblical prophets often involved finding creative ways to communicate complex ideas, and Jeremiah was no exception. Despite his efforts, Jeremiah's prophetic mission faced resistance. The people were complacent, believing that their heritage would protect them. It's similar to someone ignoring financial advice because they think their current wealth will last forever. Jeremiah tried to shake them out of this false security. His struggles highlight the challenge of convincing others to change before it's too late. The weeping prophet's story teaches us about the importance of heeding warnings. His persecution and torture were consequences of delivering an unpopular truth. Yet, he remained steadfast, showing remarkable resilience. Think about times when you've had to deliver tough news or advice. Jeremiah's trials remind us that while it's not easy, it's sometimes necessary for the greater good. Jeremiah's call to repentance was more than just words. It was an urgent invitation to transform. However, his message wasn't well received, leading to increased opposition. This sets the stage for understanding the intense persecution he would soon face. Jeremiah's prophetic mission was anything but smooth sailing. As he delivered God's messages, the weeping prophet Jeremiah began to face intense opposition. People didn't take kindly to his warnings about impending doom. Imagine telling a crowd that their cherished ways are leading them astray. It's no surprise that the persecution of Jeremiah escalated quickly. Political leaders and even religious figures saw him as a threat to their comfort and authority. This wasn't just a minor disagreement, it was open hostility. The torture of prophet Jeremiah started to manifest in various forms. He was mocked publicly, and his words were twisted to paint him as a traitor. Think about a time when you've been misunderstood or your intentions questioned. It's a frustrating experience, right? For Jeremiah, this was magnified tenfold. His suffering wasn't just emotional, it became physical. The prophet Jeremiah's struggles included beatings and being put in the stocks, a form of public humiliation. Jeremiah's trials didn't deter him from his mission, though his resilience is a testament to his unwavering faith. For instance, despite the persecution and torture in the Bible that he endured, he continued to proclaim the truth. It's like a whistleblower who, despite threats, stands firm for what's right. The weeping prophet story highlights how Jeremiah's faith was both his anchor and his motivation to keep going. The Bible story of Jeremiah shows that his opposition wasn't just from strangers. Even those close to him turned their backs. Imagine feeling isolated in your own community. It's a heavy burden to bear. Yet Jeremiah's prophecy didn't waver. He understood that the suffering of biblical prophets was often part of delivering messages that people needed to hear, even if they didn't want to. As the walls closed in around him, Jeremiah faced one of his most challenging ordeals yet: imprisonment. This wasn't just a timeout, it was a dire situation that tested the very limits of his endurance. But that's a story we'll delve into next. Jeremiah's imprisonment was one of the most harrowing episodes in the weeping prophet's story. The persecution of Jeremiah escalated when his prophecies became too uncomfortable for the leaders of Judah. They couldn't stand the truth he spoke, so they resorted to silencing him. Imagine being thrown into a muddy cistern, left to sink in the mire. That's precisely what happened to Jeremiah. This wasn't just a punishment. It was a deliberate attempt to break the prophet Jeremiah's resilience. The torture of prophet Jeremiah wasn't limited to confinement. He was beaten and placed in stocks, a device that held his body in painful positions. These acts were meant to humiliate and crush his spirit. Think about the emotional toll of such suffering. It's like being ostracized by your community for standing up for what's right. The Bible story of Jeremiah highlights how these trials tested his faith to the core. Jeremiah's imprisonment was more than physical confinement, it was a spiritual battle. The prophet Jeremiah's suffering forced him to confront his own doubts and fears. Yet even in the darkest pit, he didn't abandon his prophetic mission. For example, consider how people today find hope in dire situations by holding on to their beliefs. Jeremiah in the Bible serves as a powerful example of maintaining faith under extreme persecution and torture. The suffering of biblical prophets often reveals deeper truths about human resilience. Jeremiah's trials weren't just personal struggles, they were symbolic of the struggle between truth and denial in society. The story of Jeremiah Explained shows us that enduring hardship can be a testament to one's commitment to a higher purpose. His experiences encourage us to stay steadfast even when facing overwhelming opposition. Despite the intense torture of prophet Jeremiah, his spirit remained unbroken. His faith didn't waver, and his messages continued to flow. This unyielding dedication sets the stage for understanding how Jeremiah's time in the cistern became a pivotal test of his faith, which we'll explore next. Jeremiah's imprisonment reached a harrowing peak when he was thrown into a cistern, a dark, muddy pit intended to break his spirit. The weeping prophet Jeremiah found himself sinking into the mire, a physical representation of the depths of despair he was experiencing. Imagine being isolated in such a grim place, cut off from any human contact. This wasn't just about physical suffering. It was a profound test of his faith. The torture of prophet Jeremiah in this cistern was meant to silence his prophetic mission once and for all. Yet even in the darkest depths, Jeremiah's faith didn't falter. He used this time to reflect and reconnect with God, turning his suffering into a spiritual journey. It's like when people today use periods of hardship to rediscover their purpose or strengthen their beliefs. The weeping prophet's story teaches us that moments of isolation can become opportunities for profound personal growth. Jeremiah's trials in the Sistern highlight his resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. The Bible story of Jeremiah in the Sistern is a powerful illustration of enduring faith. Despite the persecution and torture in the Bible that he endured, he remained steadfast. Think about times when you felt trapped in a situation with no way out. Jeremiah's imprisonment shows that maintaining hope is crucial. His suffering of biblical prophets wasn't in vain. It served a greater purpose in his prophetic mission. Eventually, an Ethiopian official named Ebed-Melech intervened, rescuing Jeremiah from the Sistern. This act of kindness demonstrates how unexpected allies can appear in our darkest moments. For instance, have you ever received help from an unlikely source when you least expected it? The story of Jeremiah explained through his time in the Sistern underscores the importance of community and compassion. Jeremiah's time in the Sistern was a pivotal moment that tested and ultimately strengthened his faith. His experiences there prepared him for the continued challenges ahead, including expressing his grief in the poignant writings known as Jeremiah's Lamentations. Jeremiah's Lamentations are some of the most heartfelt writings you'll find in the Bible. The weeping prophet Jeremiah poured out his soul in these texts, capturing the depth of his sorrow over the destruction of Jerusalem. Imagine watching everything you hold dear crumble before your eyes. That's the kind of pain Jeremiah was expressing. His lamentations offer a window into the prophet Jeremiah's suffering, showcasing the emotional toll his prophetic mission took on him. The Bible story of Jeremiah becomes even more profound when you consider the personal anguish he endured. The weeping prophet's story isn't just about external trials, it's also about internal struggles. Jeremiah's Lamentations reveal his conversations with God, where he questions and grapples with the unfolding events. It's like writing in a journal during tough times to make sense of your feelings. Jeremiah's trials weren't just physical, but deeply emotional. His writings help us understand the suffering of biblical prophets on a more personal level. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by circumstances beyond your control, Jeremiah's Lamentations can resonate deeply. In the book of Lamentations, Jeremiah doesn't hold back his emotions. He vividly describes the devastation of Jerusalem, the despair of the people, and his own grief. For example, he writes about the streets being desolate and the joy of the people turning into mourning. These vivid descriptions help in the Bible mysteries explained through his eyes. Jeremiah's Lamentations serve as a powerful reminder of the consequences of turning away from God's guidance. They are not just historical accounts, but timeless lessons. Jeremiah's message to Judah was clear, but now his lamentations serve as a reflection on what could have been avoided. The prophet Jeremiah's struggles culminate in these writings, where his sorrow is palpable. Yet amidst the grief, there's a glimmer of hope. Jeremiah's faith remains intact, even as he mourns. It's akin to finding a silver lining in the darkest clouds. His resilience shines through, demonstrating the prophet Jeremiah's resilience despite overwhelming odds. The weeping prophet's story teaches us that it's okay to express our grief and doubts. Jeremiah's Lamentations show that vulnerability can coexist with faith. If you're going through tough times, perhaps writing down your thoughts or speaking to someone can provide relief. The story of Jeremiah, explained through his Lamentations, offers a roadmap for navigating personal anguish. And as we move forward, we'll see how Jeremiah's enduring faith continues to inspire, even in the face of relentless persecution. Despite relentless adversity, the weeping prophet Jeremiah remained steadfast in his faith. Imagine facing constant rejection and still holding on to your convictions. That's the essence of Prophet Jeremiah's resilience. His persecution wasn't just physical. It was an all-out assault on his spirit and purpose. Yet Jeremiah's trials only strengthened his commitment to his prophetic mission. It's like a tree that grows stronger roots during a storm. Jeremiah's suffering serves as a powerful example of unwavering faith. Even when thrown into prison and subjected to torture, he didn't waver. Think about times when you faced obstacles that seemed insurmountable. Jeremiah's story shows that enduring hardship can lead to profound personal growth. His life encourages us to stay true to our values, no matter the opposition. The weeping prophet's story isn't just about enduring pain, it's about finding purpose within it. Jeremiah in the Bible demonstrates how faith can be a source of strength during the darkest times. For instance, many people find solace in spiritual practices when facing life's challenges. Jeremiah's prophetic mission was fueled by his deep connection with God, illustrating the power of faith in action. Jeremiah's enduring faith also highlights the importance of hope. Despite the bleak circumstances, he believed in a future restoration for his people. It's similar to holding on to optimism during tough times in our own lives. The suffering of biblical prophets like Jeremiah teaches us that hope can be a guiding light through adversity. As we reflect on Jeremiah's resilience, we see a blueprint for how to navigate our own trials. His unwavering faith amid persecution sets the stage for exploring the valuable lessons his life offers to us today. Jeremiah's life is a masterclass in perseverance and faith. The weeping prophet Jeremiah didn't have an easy journey, yet his trials offer timeless lessons for modern believers. One of the most significant lessons from his story is the importance of standing firm in your beliefs, even when it feels like the world is against you. Jeremiah's trials remind us that true faith isn't about comfort, it's about resilience. Think of times when you faced challenges that tested your resolve. Jeremiah's perseverance can serve as a guiding light. Another key takeaway from Jeremiah's prophetic mission is the power of speaking truth, no matter how uncomfortable. His relentless call for Judah's repentance was met with harsh resistance, yet he didn't back down. It's like being the one person in a group who points out what everyone else is ignoring. Jeremiah's prophetic courage encourages us to have the strength to speak up, even when it might not be popular or easy. Jeremiah's life also illustrates the critical role of faith during times of suffering. His persecution and torture didn't weaken his resolve. Instead, they deepened his connection with God. Imagine going through a difficult time and finding that your faith grows stronger rather than weaker. That's what Jeremiah experienced. His enduring faith reminds us that challenges can be opportunities for spiritual growth. The suffering of biblical prophets, particularly Jeremiah, teaches us that following God's path often comes with sacrifices. Yet, these sacrifices can lead to profound personal development and a deeper understanding of purpose. Think about how embracing challenges in your own life has helped you grow. Jeremiah's prophetic mission shows that even in hardship, there is meaning. Jeremiah's life story leaves us with a powerful lesson. Perseverance in the face of adversity, rooted in faith, can carry us through even the darkest times. His unwavering commitment is a timeless example for all who seek to walk a path of faith, preparing us for understanding the lasting impact of his prophecies, which we'll explore next. Jeremiah's prophecies left a lasting mark on both the history of Judah and the Christian faith. The weeping prophet Jeremiah wasn't just lamenting for his people. His words carried divine foresight. His warnings about the destruction of Jerusalem were eventually fulfilled, cementing his place among the most significant prophets in the Bible. It's like witnessing a long-awaited consequence finally come to pass. His prophecy was a sobering reality. Jeremiah's prophetic mission wasn't just a message for his time, it echoes through history. The Bible story of Jeremiah is a reminder that even when people refuse to listen, the truth remains. His predictions about the fall of Jerusalem unfolded just as he had warned, showing the weight of his message. This is akin to situations today where ignored advice eventually proves to be true, and the consequences follow. Jeremiah's trials were not in vain. His legacy became a crucial part of biblical history and theology. Jeremiah's impact extends beyond just the destruction of Judah. His prophecies also spoke of hope and restoration. He foresaw a new covenant that God would make with his people, a covenant fulfilled in the New Testament through Jesus Christ. Jeremiah's life story continues to influence Christian teachings today, emphasizing perseverance and the power of faith in God's plan, even when it seems distant. The suffering of biblical prophets, particularly Jeremiah, became a foundational narrative for understanding the role of hardship in spiritual growth. Jeremiah's prophetic mission has inspired countless believers to stay committed to their faith, even when facing opposition. His legacy teaches us that God's promises stand even in the darkest times, and that faith in those promises can see us through the most challenging moments. Reflecting on Jeremiah's legacy helps us appreciate the broader scope of his prophecies and their relevance today. The weeping prophet's story is a timeless reminder that, while suffering may be inevitable, hope and restoration are always on the horizon. And as we move forward, we'll explore how his story remains deeply relevant to our lives today. Jeremiah's story is just as relevant today as it was centuries ago. The weeping prophet Jeremiah experienced trials that many can relate to: persecution, rejection, and hardship. His message of repentance, faith, and perseverance offers timeless lessons. Whether you're facing personal challenges or societal pressures, Jeremiah's prophetic mission teaches us that standing firm in our beliefs is crucial, even when it feels like the world is against us. His struggles remind us that truth isn't always comfortable, but it's always necessary. The story of Jeremiah, explained through the lens of modern times, resonates with those who feel overwhelmed by adversity. Just like Jeremiah endured torture, isolation, and suffering, many today face emotional and spiritual battles. His resilience shows that while suffering is inevitable, it's our faith and perseverance that will ultimately define us. The persecution of Jeremiah becomes a powerful metaphor for the trials we face in our daily lives. Jeremiah's lamentations teach us the importance of expressing our grief and emotions. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, to question, and to seek answers. His faith in God remained unshaken, even as he expressed sorrow. This is a profound lesson for us today. Faith doesn't mean denying our pain, but finding strength within it. The prophet Jeremiah's struggles offer hope that even in the darkest times, we are not alone, and that there is always a path forward. The Bible mysteries explained through Jeremiah's prophecies also offer hope. While he warned of destruction, he also foresaw restoration, a future filled with new promises and hope. This balance of warning and hope is relevant for those navigating tough times today. The weeping prophet Jeremiah left a legacy that teaches us to hold on to faith, even when the odds are against us. Now, it's up to you to apply these lessons and let Jeremiah's example inspire your journey of faith. How will you respond to the challenges in your life? What steps will you take to strengthen your faith? If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you won't miss any future content that dives deeper into powerful stories like Jeremiah's. Let's continue this journey together.